Hi guys, how are you? It's Stacy. If you're coming back to see me, thank you. And if you're new, welcome. I'm recording this video and I am going to do a disclaimer on this, um, a trigger warning, and I will also put it in the description box. I'm not going to show my face obviously through this because this is very personal things and is stuff that I have been trying to get out for a while in different ways um, throughout my life. And as I'm watching the world and I'm realizing what all is going to go on and the children who are really going to need help coming out of the things that they have been put into, I feel like there are some people who know a little bit about my story, some people who know a little bit more, some people that don't know nothing, but they claim that they do. And so we're going to do a timeline of me. And first off, my whole life journey as a light worker, not knowing that at the time I'm going to try to do this as I am speaking from my child within. And when we get up to as I get older, then I'll try to explain it that way. Anywho, I don't want anyone to leave this video feeling sorry for me, feeling bad that they treated me a certain way. This is not for you. This is for me and for me to get this out for my whole complete truth of what I have truly gone through and where I am now. Just know by the end of the story where I sit now, as you're listening to me, I am very strong in my weakness. I don't regret anything that's ever happened to me. I see the meaning behind it all. And I am a very strong survivor, and I will advocate for child abuse victims for until the day I die. So, obviously, as you know, my name is Stacy. I was born Stacy Lynn Willis on February 14th, 1976. I was born to J.D. Willis and Laura Willis. And they were married for, I think they were together a couple months after I was born. And then my father and my mother divorced, and he went on with another family. From 1976 to 1983, 84. My brother was born in 1981, and he was taken away from my mother in 1987. So from 76 to no, he was 5. So, oh, he was younger than that. Okay. I was 8. My brother was 4. Okay. Well, when my brother got taken away from my mother and from me, in those 8 years of my life, the 4 years of my brother's life was horrific. And there was sexual abuse going on in every aspect of our lives. When CPS got involved because teachers and um, other family members and my mom and my stepdad started to get a divorce, the accusations of what was going on with me and my brother started going everywhere. Um, my brother got taken away. He went and lived with his father. I stayed with our mother. There was counseling sessions. I would get in a taxi, go to Midtown, downtown Indianapolis by myself at 8 years old to have counseling. My mother really never wanted anything to do with that. I remember her going a couple times, but not very often. There were a lot of fighting going back and forth on the things that I had said because all I could remember at that point was that there was people coming into my room at night. It was dark. They looked like black shadows to me because it was so dark. All I could see was darkness. Blankets would be pulled up over my head. I would wake up with blood all over me and all over my clothes. And that was, I couldn't tell in my home or at night who it was because I was so little and it somewhere started before I was able to walk. The sexual abuse, I don't ever remember it not occurring. I know that I was very, very small. My feet didn't hit was dangling over the toilet seat. I could sit on a lay on a coffee table and my feet didn't hit the floor. So I was severely young. Um, when CPS came in and they would take me and have me do dolls and show what had been done to me, which I think is a violation of any child. No one should have to go through that. Like you're not already embarrassed enough. There was issues on the fact that I was very sexual knowledgeable by 8 years old. Me and my brother both, even at him at 4, but me at 8, I knew a lot of sexual knowledge that there was no way that I was going to be able to know had I not experienced everything that I had experienced. So they wanted me to show them the things that I was doing, including um, including the psychiatrist and stuff put me in a room. There was probably in my mind as a child there was I want to say 4 or 5 doctors. It could have been more, it could have been less. We're talking about an 8 year old a long time ago. Um, I they wanted me to masturbate in front of them to show them, which now as an adult I realized how tremendously fucked up that is. Like that shouldn't have never have been able to be a case a child have to do that to show any kind of adults. So that was traumatic in itself. I really learned at that point not to trust any adults, period. They weren't going to do anything for me. Yeah. And at the same time this was going on, that was just the sexual abuse that was going on in my home that I couldn't put a face to until I got older. I blocked out pretty much all of my childhood until I hit the age of 23. And then I started remembering a little bit at a time, a little bit more breakdowns, the things that we will go over. So as you're listening to this, remember a lot of it I didn't even remember until I got older. The person in my room, the black shadow, I always remembered. Um, the neighbors down the street, I always remembered family men that I was left with. I remembered their abuse, but for me at that time, it was like no big deal. It was just a part of my life. Like it didn't even seem like it was something abnormal for me. It was just something that I was used to at the time. When things started coming out when I was 8, and I would, and everyone was telling me that these things were wrong, yet, they were still doing things that were violating me. And I was being told that I was going to be taken away from my mother. My mother was all that I had known at the time, and my brother was already gone away from her. The everyday sexual abuse from that point that I can remember quit. So my mom loses my brother, which throws her into a deep depression, and she hates me for it. I'm the one that came forward with the sexual abuse, and there wasn't really I wasn't really able to hide it. I was having meltdowns, and my vagina was red, and I would have rashes up and down my legs and infections and all this stuff there. I I was I didn't know. I was told to keep everything a secret. Yet I was trying to do that. Yet these people were telling me that they were going to help me. As a child at that time, I had no idea. I just wanted to protect my mom because my mom was crying, and I didn't understand why she was crying, to the core of the fact that, yes, she had lost my brother, but I was still a little girl who needed love too. But yet I learned not to tell my mother anything, because when I would wake up with blood on me, I ran downstairs to tell her that it hurt really bad, and that there was blood all over my clothes and in the corner and everything. And she told me to shut up, stop lying, and go clean it up. So that's what I did. And I learned to just keep all that to myself, because who was going to believe me? And that was the start of the first 8 years of my life. I am now 44, going on 45. And so, anywho, my brother gets taken away. He goes and lives with his dad. My mom only gets him or on Wednesdays and every other weekend. At that point, the major points of my sexual abuse stopped. Um, the the people that were all involved at that point were no longer in my everyday life at that point that I knew of. We'll put it that way. So the emotional, verbal, and physical abuse started with my mother. My mother wanted me out of the way. It was my fault that my brother got taken away. These are the things she told me. My brother would come over. She would make me stay in my bedroom. I couldn't interrupt them. If I interrupt them, there would be hell to pay. How dare I expect any attention whatsoever? Very, very hurtful. I mean, I missed my brother too, obviously. And all I remember is that I wanted to protect him. I remember always thinking I wanted to protect him, and my love for him, and keeping him safe, and my cousins safe, because my cousins around that time remember me being locked in my room, and hearing me cry and know something was happening. But my cousins they're younger than me. I'm the oldest. I have one cousin that's a month older than me, but the rest of them are younger than me. And they remember knowing that something was going on later on in life. They've all told me they remember knowing that something was going on, but they couldn't help me. So back forward a little bit. Sorry, guys, I'm probably going to go back and forth. Um, as I got a little bit older, and I was used to just staying out of everybody's way, I thought that if I could be good, if I could be better, if I could be better, then none of this would happen. There was a lot of whoopings, and I mean ass whoopings, not just spankings, but ass whoopings for even questioning the authority of my mother, or of my own emotions. At that point, when I hit 10 years old, my mother remarried again, or the third time. And that was, life calmed down a little bit for me. She was a little bit happier, or she was at least getting what she needed from this man monetarily. I'm pretty sure, I don't think she's ever, I think she's only really loved one man. that I know of my whole entire life. And that's as much as she's capable of loving anyone. Also, let me put this out here. I'm not doing this to hurt my mother. I'm not doing this to hurt my family. I'm not doing this video to hurt anyone. I have forgiven to the best of my ability as a human being. I have love for everyone, but this is my story and I'm not hiding it any longer. So, with that being said, let's move forward. My mother was highly addicted to prescription pills, highly, and I'm talking about taking so many pills she would be foaming at the mouth. I never knew if she was alive or dead. Those kind of situations as a child, fearing that your mother's going to die, and me thinking if I could just be good enough, then she would get better. Lo and behold, her and my third stepfather separated. She got with a man who had no children, who did not even want her to have children or us be around her. She felt like we were a bother to be around, at least me anyway. I was a bother to be around because he didn't have children, and that just created, I was just in their way. So I went to go live with one of my stepfathers, and was and he worked a lot, and I pretty much could do whatever I wanted to do. I was turning into a teenager. It was clear to me that my mother didn't want me, and the more that she was in a relationship with him, I didn't see her for a few years. She would come in and check on me, ask me to borrow money, because once I started working, then I was making money, and she would come and ask me for money, and then I wouldn't see her for a few more months, and that would happen for a while. When that's another reason why I'm doing this video. I got so many DMs asking me, well, how do you how does your husband feel about you having a twin flame? How does all this work? And I figured for me to be able to even remotely explain any of this, I need to get honest with myself, honest with the truth of what really happened, let it out there, not be scared of who I am, and just speak it. And if this video goes up, cool. If not, then I guess it'll be something that I save for later on in my life. So I moved into a neighborhood, 15, 14, saw my twin flame for the first time. God had told me in between, let me back up. I told you we'll probably do this a while. I was always connected to God. When all this was going on with me, I found my solace in my loneliness of talking to God, of talking to angels, of them helping me when I was in so much pain I couldn't get off the floor, when things had been done to me that I couldn't walk. I found my peace through the love of God, source, whatever you want to call it in your own life. That was my solace. So anytime that I could run to church, run to disciple concerts, run to church camps, I was there. That was a part of my life. That was a part of the only solace that I had, is the unconditional love that I was still able to feel for everyone around me and from God. And as I got older, I really hated the fact that I had unconditional love for people no matter what they did to me. And that continued throughout my life. So I meet my twin flame, and it was a different dynamic than I was used to. His family was completely different than my family. He grew up completely different than I grew up. I had already went through so much stuff by the time that I met him, that I was already shut down, shut up, do what I was told, and try not to make waves for people, because if I spoke, they were not going to love me. And that was the things that I was told. My mother would tell me off and on throughout my younger years that if I left her, she would die. She wouldn't be able to live without me, and I took that very seriously. Like, that became my job of protecting her the best that I could. back to I get into a relationship. I had no idea, as you all know. I no one I didn't know what a twin flame was. I didn't know nothing. All I knew was that I had this connection to God. I had these gifts. I was scared to tell anybody about these gifts, yet I was a very tormented, hurt child who wasn't allowed to speak up for myself or protect myself in any way, shape, or form. I was not allowed to speak. So by the time that I met him, I was just trying to fit in with everyone else. I wanted to be able to go to school, have fun after school, go out with my friends, all those things that you're supposed to be able to do as a teenager, but I wasn't able to do that because that wasn't the life that I lived. I could, and at that point in life, I chose to not think about anything that had happened to me. I didn't wrap it around my head. I didn't want to think about it. I knew that they had said that I had been molested by this, and this, and I had went through this, but I didn't have no emotion attached to it. I did not feel any certain way about it. My body was just physically going every day the way that I thought I needed to go, and thinking, and everyone just kept telling me I needed to forget about it, forget about it, forget about it. But there was still abuse going on in so many different ways, physically, mentally, sexually, things being shown to me, things that were said to me from other people, even as a teenager. And that at that point, I only had one person left that cared about me. So let's I'm just going to deal with that, right? I'm just going to deal with it. And I was scared of telling I was scared of telling my twin flame, my boyfriend at the time. We won't even call him a twin flame then, because my boyfriend at the time, anything that was going on. And I tried, but back in those days, it was, you know, most guys, I don't want to say most, but the guys that I knew, you know, women were bitches, hoes, and whores. Like, our opinions, our feelings really didn't matter. And it matched up with the way that I was raised. And I was so, I would have memories come and go and I wouldn't be able to handle it. And I would be so overwhelmed and I wasn't able to tell anybody what was going on. And I probably truly did look like a crazy person. And so I understand how it all played out the way that it did. So I moved in with my boyfriend and his family. And that was the first time that I even saw love from a family in any dynamic whatsoever. So not only was I falling in love with him, but I was falling in love with his family and feeling secure being there. So our relationship was on and off, on and off. I had no idea how to love myself, how to love others, but yet I had all this love inside of me and I couldn't stop it, and I didn't know what it all meant. But I was also turning into a wild teenager who just wanted to be free. So when I hit 18, I went a little wild. I really wanted to escape who I was, what I was. I didn't want to see the things that had happened to me. I totally had blocked them out, as most of us do. And I was still, dealing with very traumatic things from my mother when she would come around, her drug abuse, her mental abuse to me. That will continue throughout this story until I was 40. And, people have asked me, how did you know, handle her for 40 years and not break? Well, the thing is that when you are programmed to believe at a very young age that somebody will die without you, like they will take their life, they will die, you are the only thing keeping them alive, and being the empath and everything that I am and feeling all the emotions and understanding that she was mentally ill, it's very easy to do that. it's very easy to blame yourself. So instead of putting anything on anyone else, I just took it on myself that if I could be better, I could do better. If I was a better person, if I was prettier, if I was smarter, if I could change me, then everything else would be great, right? No. So I continue to grow up. Things are still off and on very rocky. Things are still going on. Different types of abuse. But now here I am, I'm in love. So I my mother would come back into my life and she wanted to go on vacation. Side note here. She wanted to go on vacation, so she sent me into this place called the Koala Center, which is like for children who are really bad. And let me tell you, I hadn't even said a cuss word. My ass was scared to even say a cuss word of what she would do to me. I was nowhere near a bad child. She wanted to go on vacation with the man, so she put me in this place with these kids that scared the living shit out of me. They had these kids tied down on beds and they were screaming and they were shoving stuff in their mouth to keep them quiet. And I did not, I froze. And when she came back, I begged her that I would be the best child in the world. I would never question her. I would never do anything. Just please get me out of here. Anything that I could do to get out there, I was going to do. So that was the first time that I was, other than CPS and everything that they did, that was the first time that I was behind doors that were locked, again, feeling like I had no control. I believe I was 16 and a half at that point. Time goes on. As I said, I start growing. I am still having a relationship. I was with my boyfriend off and on for a while. My mother's coming in and out of my life at times. All of that, there would be months, there would be years, there would be this, there would be that. Anyway, we'll get past that part because there's a lot. Just know there's a lot of trauma confirmation. There's a lot of trauma, and I've already said more than I even want to say. So I get my own place with my boyfriend, think I'm doing well, everything's going well, I'm trying to work, I'm trying to start this normal life, I'm trying to be this person that I know that I am if I can just stop and get over and forget what all is going on. Okay, sorry, I had to stop it. I don't know where it was. So I'm trying to start my own life. I'm working. I have this relationship, I will say, but I didn't know how to work a relationship. I had never seen a relationship work, and the only love that I'd ever seen in an actual family that worked was my aunt, and then that blew up. That wasn't true. And then I saw his family. So that was all I knew about a relationship. I had no idea what it meant to be in a real relationship, or the fact that the only thing that I was wanted for or needed for was sex. I thought sex was love. Why wouldn't I believe sex was love? I had been getting sexually abused since I was a toddler. So to me, sex was love. Someone showing me sexual attention meant that they loved me. That's where my mind was at that point. So at 21, I started having flashbacks of things that was coming back that I had forgot this whole time. So like the whole story that I told you, other than remembering blood and all that stuff, I had totally pushed out. And the new stuff that came in as I was an actual teenager, I didn't tell anybody because I was told to be quiet before and nothing ever happened. So 21, 22 come around and I'm really starting to have these flashbacks of things, but none of them make sense to me. Absolutely none of them make sense to me. It's like putting together a puzzle and I don't understand. And the people involved, I didn't want to accept. So I would rather had accept that there was something really wrong with my thinking, because I was remembering telling someone when I was 10 years old about something that was devastating to me. And when this person turned around and told my mother, then I got beat for it. So there was a lot of fear involved to feel my own emotions, even at 21. And no one really, and they think that, you get 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 28, 35, that you're stronger and you should be smarter. And it wasn't that I wasn't smart, because I'm very freaking fucking smart. I was emotionally manipulated in a family that made me believe that I was less than, and everything that I was didn't matter, and my emotions didn't matter, and what happened to me didn't matter, and I deserved it. So 21, I get a job. I'm working. I'm making pretty good money. I start letting, I had a couple of friends in high school, but I never really, most everyone, my mom would hang out with all of the popular kids in school and then tell them not to talk to me. My mom would have parties and do drugs with the teenage kids and yet tell them not to talk to me. And, it's a big fuckery of fucktardia right there. But anywho, she would also always tell me that never to trust a man, that all men are cheaters, and that she would show me. And she knew that I was in love. She knew that I was in love for the first time, and it was genuine. It was as honest as it could possibly be for me at that point in my life for what I knew. She knew that I loved him, and she would tell me, I can show you how much he doesn't love you. I can pay someone to sleep with him, and I will show you that anyone else can have him for me. So that was the mindset that I was brought into from the very first time that I had my very first boyfriend, was that she would show me that she could have someone take them away from me. And that's exactly what she did in several relationships of mine, unfortunately. Anyway, I start working. I'm trying to make friends. I'm trying to live my life. I am still the odd one out. No one understands me. No one understands what I'm trying to say. I'm talking about this abuse. I'm trying to get it out. Everyone's tired of hearing it, but yet I'm not telling the whole truth, because I don't know the whole truth yet. I just know that I am hurting so bad and I don't understand any of it. 22 comes around. I go and get a book. One of my best guy friends bought me a book called The Courage to Heal. I start reading it. I start understanding that everything that I went through wasn't my fault. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I was innocent in all of that. I'm not this person. That if I'm not this person, that means these people are those people, right? Well, that was too rough. I could put this shit on me, but to put it on the people that I loved, that I wanted to be better. I wanted them to be healthy. I didn't want to accept it, was a whole different other story. So at that point, I was living with my boyfriend, and we were living with one of my stepfathers, and my mother was living next door, and she was really, really bad on drugs, making fun of me. My stepfather was an alcoholic, coming home drunk, saying things to me, and I had mentioned to my boyfriend that I needed to leave, and I had to leave. I had to leave. But yet he had this perfect family. Why would he want to leave? He wouldn't want to leave his family. But I needed to get out of Indiana. I needed to get out of Indiana really, really bad. And the only guys, like, I had only been with him except for when I turned 18. I was with someone else, and from that point on, I was only with someone who had been sexually abused. And the only reason that one time happened, and we were supposedly broke up, but teenagers break up, which is stupid. We were supposedly broke up, and I made a very bad decision, but it was because this person could somewhat understand what I went through. They had been sexually abused. So from that point on, every relationship that I have had up until this point at 44, they have been in sexually they have been sexually abused, and that was the only way that any man was going to understand me on a deeper level, I thought. So yeah, 22, I start reading, I start trying to understand what's going on with me, and I was going through all this stuff, and then all of a sudden I just I met this guy that I worked with. I He listened to me. I was able to tell him. He pretty much picked up on the signals of my sexual abuse right away because he had been sexually abused. His mother had been sexually abused, and I was really contemplating suicide at that point. And he told me that I could go there and talk to her and she would try to help me, which I was trying to tell everyone around me what I wanted to do, but it didn't matter because there was this female that came into my world who was telling me that my boyfriend did not love me, he did not want me, he was hitting on her, he was hitting on everyone else, and I had no reason to believe that anybody was going to not do that to me. And you need to get away from him. He's not good for you. And I really wanted to leave anyway. And my mother was telling me that she could prove to me that he didn't love me. And to come out years later, I found out that she, she did. When I left, and I left my boyfriend, I really wanted to tell him the truth. I really wanted him to know what was going on with me, why I was doing all this, but they had already made up their own minds, and he was with my family and her, going around my mother, going living with my stepfather, and her living in the house that I had. And it was like mind blowing. Like, what in the fuck? Who does that? Like, I couldn't even imagine doing that to one of my kids. Like, I wasn't allowed to go into my own home because I had left. Nobody wanted to hear why I left. No one gave a shit why I left. And I would call back here, and my friends would my friends, quote unquote friends, would be with him and this girl, and they would be saying how they're doing this, that, and the other, and why would I come back? Like, what the hell? I didn't feel wanted. Nobody understood anything. After I did a, several counseling sessions and was very helped by this friend of mine's mother that I moved to Chicago with, Maryville, North Chicago, or East Chicago. I came back home, wanted to tell everyone what I had been finding out, what I had been doing, the truth of why I left, try to get my life back together, away from anything that was going to bring me back down, and get back with my boyfriend and try to make him understand the best that I could the reasons why I had left. But he had a baby on the way. At this point, all I had ever wanted with him from the time that I could remember being with him was a baby, because for some reason in my mind I knew that I could be a mom and I could love that unconditionally, which it doesn't really work like that. Nobody tried to do that. But I could never get pregnant, and they kept saying that it was because of the scar tissue and things that were going on with my body physically and the things that I had went through. I come back, he's then got this person I thought was my friend pregnant. She was not my friend, not 1 ounce of her. She wanted to take over my life, and she accomplished so, to the point that on my birthday I went to see go to my house and see my stepfather, and I was told to leave, that she didn't want me there. And so I turn around, she pulls up driving his car, which, let me tell you, I wasn't even allowed to touch that car, sit in that car, be a part of any of that car, but she was driving it without him. So I pretty much learned where I stood at that point. Yeah. So they were having a baby. My ass was devastated beyond devastation. Like, I did all this work. I tried just because I didn't tell everybody, because I couldn't hear this is and these are all lies. And she told me that she could get him away from me. My mom told me if I went looking, basically if I went looking for the truth, if I went, that that she would have him taken away from me and she could do it. And at that point, she did it. And my heart was broken. So I continued to keep researching, learning about sexual abuse, the trauma that I had been through, what I needed to work on, all these things. And a few months go by, and I'm really tired of being inside the house, and my friend gets me to go outside. I decide I'm going to have my first one night stand. Bam, I get pregnant. So, you know, 3 months after he's having a baby with her, I'm pregnant by somebody else. So, long story short, we try to get back together off and on. It doesn't happen. There's too many people in the way. She wasn't going to let him be around me. Blah, 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 blah. I have a baby. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm trying to be a mother. I'm trying to get to learn my childhood. I'm trying to put all the pieces back together. And I'm working 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, 7 days on, 7 days off, being a single mom, doing the best that I can. And I learn a massive part of my childhood comes in. And I was just so exhausted and tired of fighting at this point that at 24, I put myself in a stress center to try to talk to a counselor one last time, because I hadn't seen a counselor since I was really 8 years old, to see if it was different, to see if they could help me. I ended up helping them. I did meet a friend in there who is still one of my best friends to this day. But to the outside world, to those people, to those friends, to that boyfriend, to everyone involved, I was crazy and was now in a nut house, even though I was in a stress center trying to figure me out, because I was smart enough to try to do the work to help me, and they had no idea what was going on. But I try to understand on an outside perspective. Okay, whatever. You're all young. You don't understand. I don't understand. It is what it is. So I'm raising my son. I get out. I'm doing the best that I can. I moved to the country to be closer to people that were in my life at that point, hoping that I'm going to be okay, that I'm going, things are getting better. I try to ignore the fact that what everyone was saying, and months go by, and I go on a date. I go on my first date, and I'm scared. And at this point, before I went on this date, I had went to my ex's house. He was having a party, and I had my first premonition. Like I saw him bend down with another one of a person that I knew, bent down to pick something up, and I saw them look at each other, and I saw their whole life together flash before my eyes, and the child that they would have, and the things that would happen. And Spirit told me right then to back away and leave it alone. And I left there, and that's exactly what I did. So I went on this date, and on this date, I started dating this guy. Make a long story short, I got date raped. And 2 weeks later, I get really sick, find out that he gave me a sexually transmitted disease, which then they're telling me I need to call everyone that I had been with in a month. And in that month, I had been with my boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend. So I had to call him and let him know that I had this, but I did not tell him what had happened to me. I let him assume that I was just a whore, because that's easy. So I never told him why I had it, and to this day, unless he watches this video, he still does not know. So I decided at that point to just really just stop altogether, like just stop. I didn't want anything to do with anybody. I went in straight hermit mode to try to find myself. My mother was out of my life at this point. Everyone else was out of my life at this point. Maybe I can do it a little bit. So many people, so the people who have asked me about how I ended up how I have a twin flame, but yet I've been married for 16 years and all the emails that I've got about this. I'm putting this all into one. So listen up, people. I had handlers come in and tore me and my twin flame apart. I had a mother who told me that she would do so. I had a mother that slept with other of my boyfriends to take my best friend, the one that my best guy friend in the world, away from me. As I'm sitting down eating food, we're eating food, and she just looks at me and goes, "You know how you think that he loves you so much? Well, ask him what he did with me last night." Like, who the fuck does that? So that pretty much, since he was the only one at that point that I had told a lot of my childhood stuff to, the fact that he could even do that with her, she took that away also. So it heated. It's responsibility of both people. So it was like, fuck all of this. Fuck all of this. So there was handlers. There were people who were there to keep us apart, to keep us completely apart. And we were trying to come back together, but it wasn't going to work. There was too much done. Baby mamas and karmics and blah, 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 all this shit. So my ass just went one way, and it was to try to heal me, to be the best part of me that I could possibly be. And I was working really hard. I had very good jobs. I was running offices. I was making very good money. I was able to take care of myself. And I get into a relationship that was tumultuous, took ended up taking all my money, making me down to zero. At this point, I don't care if I ever speak to another man before my life, because I am still crying all the time over my boyfriend, like my so-called twin now. I'm still crying all the time. Like, nobody was gonna get to my heart like him, and I knew that. And so none of those other relationships or dating even mattered to me, because the only thing that mattered to me was him knowing the truth, me being okay, so that I could get back to him, and so he could understand who I really was. And that's where my head was. After I lost everything, I ended up moving into the best apartment that I could get at the time. And I had been alone for a while, and here comes my husband. And when my husband came into my life, I was still healing, still didn't know all the truth. Remind you, I still have not learned all the truth. I did not learn the whole truth of my childhood until I was 40 years old. I was starting to learn more, but a lot had happened, and a lot is still to come to happen, to keep that in perspective. So at 20, 28, I meet my husband. He walks into my life, and I was very, very hard on him. I tested him on every limit. Yeah, you want to be with me? Sure you do. Yeah, I've heard this before. Um, we'll see if we make it past 7 years. I was very honest, brutally honest about my life. Like, I was not going to hold nothing back. Anything that I knew, I was going to tell, and everything that I could make him understand, I was going to try to make him understand, and hopefully he would run, and then I wouldn't have to run, and it would be no big deal. I could go back on with my life. With my husband, that was never going to be the case. When I showed him who I was, he fell more in love with me. And then I'm like, okay, well, my family will definitely run him off. Wait till he meets my mother. Wait till he meets these people. He's definitely going to run. And up until this point, I had no man, no person ever stand up for me. Never stand up for me. Never stand up for me, for my mom. And a couple weeks in to our relationship, our friendship, my mother comes in all drugged up, pulls, is yelling, was yelling, and my children were asleep. And my husband asked her to please be silent because the kids are sleepy. And she was making me nervous. She refused to. And so he asked her to leave. And I was like, and I didn't know what to do. Like, I had never seen anybody stand up to my mom like that before for me. And so he walked her out the door. He never touched her. He just asked her to please leave and walked her toward the door. And she pulled a gun on him. And I'm like, he's definitely going to leave now. This is over. I'm trying to explain to him. this point, she's trying to be back into my life because that's what she does, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And so, hold on, I gotta pause this to check on my kids and I'll be back. Okay, and just like that for y'all, I'm back. Anyway, it's been about 20 minutes. Anywho, she's in and out, in and out, in and out of my life. So at this point, she is trying to come in. And like I said, I had lost everything. And my mom was an escort. She was in the Nouveau newspaper in Indianapolis with Married Men Special. She was going out to meet these men. I was very scared she was going to get murdered. I don't know how to deal with that. Like, I am completely embarrassed. Everybody sees her in the Nouveau magazine. Everybody sees that she has Married Men Special. She's sitting there in lingerie. I'm like, what else the fuck can I do? I'm getting called to get her when I was younger, getting called to get her out of the bars, taking her. I like, really, really. So she's telling me she's doing this all for me, because of course it's always my fault. Anything she does, it's because of me and my fault. So she's asking me to go with her one night to make sure she's safe, and if she didn't answer the phone within an hour, then to call the police, and which is so retarded because what am I going to tell the police? My mom's in here as an escort and she's not fucking coming out. Can you please come make sure she's not dead? I mean, hindsight's 2020, but for me as her daughter, I was really scared that she was going to get hurt and I didn't know what else to do. So I went, and we're in the middle of nowhere and I'm sitting on the floorboard. I'm scared to fucking death, scared to death. And I'm talking to Eric, which is my husband, on the phone, and he's pissed off that I'm even in this situation. He's really upset. And my mom comes back out and she's like, hey, they said they'll pay double for both of us. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, they said they'll pay double for both of us. Well, obviously they would pay double for both of us. And I'm like, no, no, no. That's all I remember doing is saying no, no, no. And I ended up on the floorboard. She's like, oh, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't let you do that. She wasn't kidding, for one. It was the start of the change of all of my thinking at that point, but it would still be years later before the truth would come out. So as I'm sitting there on the floorboard, it gives me a memory of being on the floorboard when I was little, very little, with my brother at drug dealer's house with all these men around coming out to the car trying to get in and doing things through the windows and stuff like that. I mean, there's so many things throughout that would bring up more memories and more things that would come. Yeah. So I ended up being, I'm telling my husband, right, Eric, he was my husband at the time. I'm telling him everything, there is this guy that I was with for a long time. I'm still in love with him. I don't know if I'll ever not be in love with him. I don't know why it won't go away. I don't have a problem detaching from anyone. Like, I can detach like a motherfucker. I can still love the shit out of you and I can detach. Like, that's not a problem. I learned very well as I grew up how to detach from things and not feel them if that's what I wanted to, or feel them if I wanted to. So, but when it came to relationships, men, I could detach really quick, in and out. I didn't give a shit except for him. And God had told me that that relationship was important, and it had triggered me to become a better person, to do things differently, to show who I was. And I knew who he was on the core level. I knew who he really was, no matter what anybody said. So I was always open and honest with Eric about my feelings and where I was and who my twin was. I didn't use the word twin, but how connected I was, and we talked about it throughout the years of him listening to me, years that he would listen to me and go over all of this and help me figure it out in my head, because I couldn't see anything clearly, and he would walk through every part of it, all of it, with me. The emotional trauma that came from them coming in and trying to separate us paying for just the whole trauma of it all, which may not seem like trouble to any of those other people. But for me, with everything else I was going through, it was major trauma because of the way that I loved him. And because, as we know now, is a twin flame relationship. Of course, there's there's pain like no other. So as I start, my husband's like, it's okay, it's okay that you don't forget about him, and it's okay. So we continued to always talk about it. If I had an emotion that would come up, or I would see say things, or I would feel things, or I'd see something on social media, we talked about it. He was my sounding board. He talks to me about everything. I don't hide anything from him. I don't have to lie to him. I can be exactly who the fuck I am, and that's okay with him. It doesn't mean that I'm going to walk on him or hurt him or disrespect him, because that's not who I am. I respect him more for letting me be myself than anyone else on this planet. So when it comes to, the questions of twin flame and husband, blah, 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 yes, it is a different time, because I needed to be able to get to where I am now through everything that I've went through. So to be where I am now, to help people the way that I help people, I have to already be in the spot that I'm in now. And the connection that I have with my husband is so amazing, in in such a different way, that when I first found out about the twin flame journey, my thoughts were, oh, okay, now I'm really jacked up. Like, no, because everything that happens on the twin flame journey didn't happen with my husband. My husband has been amazing. My husband has been my strength, my power, my letting me grow and change as a person. All that stuff happened with the person I still couldn't let go of completely. Like, I knew I was always going to love him. Like, I didn't even know how. Like, we've been through relationships. It's been years. Can it just stop? No, it cannot. Twin flames came up, and at the same time, some massive stuff went down for my twin that I got to feel, and I got pulled in completely of feeling every emotion, which I always could. Like, I knew when he was mad, I would get glimpses of when he was upset, when he would be thinking of me throughout all these years. And I never understood why I was still so connected, why I could feel him emotionally. Like, really, why am I still feeling you emotionally? And those were my thoughts. And then I started on the ascension path and growing more and understanding things, and in this whole time, my body broke down. I got really sick. They thought I had cancer. All this was going on. My son was in a near drowning. After me and my husband got together, all this stuff is still going on. And it's because my body, I was still letting my mom come in and out of my life and walking on eggshells and protecting my children. And I could do that. I could protect my children, but I couldn't protect me. Like, I would still take it on for me. 2000, my stomach's growling. 2000 in 615, I was either going to die or really start standing up and fighting for myself. It was going to go one way or the other. I was dying. I was emotionally dying inside and physically because of it. 2016, a big blow up happened. My mother tried to get me arrested, was feeding me pills, stealing pills, take me to the doctor. I had I could no longer take it for I couldn't I she had to go forever. Like, and that was really a hard decision for me, because I knew she had mental problems. I knew she'd be alone, and I knew no one else was going to take care of her. So I decided we were going to move and no one was going to know where we were. And 3 months into me leaving at the end of 2016, all of my memories, as far as I know now, came back to me. And the things that I know that my body and my heart and my soul lived through for 40 years that I hid from myself for the mere fact that I wanted to love someone else still shocks me. But it did, it hid it from me until I was ready. And I don't want to say I was ever ready. I don't, that, but once I knew the whole truth, like once I knew the whole truth of my childhood, I was, it only kept me down for a little while. Like I was able to bounce back up and oh my God, this is what it is. This is how I deal with it. These are the people I have to have out of my life. These are my truth. These are the real truth. And yes, it goes a lot deeper than the things I have said. A lot of sexual abuse, 27 people altogether, if you want me to be honest, and I could go in it forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And I just don't feel like I need to do all of that. But what I really want you to know is that you can make it. But until you let yourself see the truth of the things that have happened into your life, it will continue to bring you down. And it did for me. I kept trying to heal. I kept trying to heal. I kept trying to be better. I could, I was so good at being the best mom that I could be, and I could love them so much, but I couldn't love me because I didn't want to see what had happened to me. I didn't want to put the blame on the person it belonged to. And let me tell you what I remembered in 2015 and how it really worked is so mind fucked up. The things that were manipulated and done to me, that I am proud of who I am. I am proud that I know exactly who I am. And as soon as that all happened, I also found out that the twin flame journey and all this stuff. And I'm telling, I'm talking to my husband about it. I'm like, look, I'm in this. I know who I am. I know exactly what my soul is. I've been through enough. I have hit, I get it. Now, what do I do about it? I'm like, so for the last year and a half, I've been, okay, I need to do a series called Life After Twin Flames. And I'm like, okay, they're not ready for that. The community's not ready for that. I don't know if that's really how it's going to go down. Let me think about this more. So I've been getting closer and closer. It's not really life after twin flames. It's more love after twin flames, but the love for the twin flame is still there. I can still feel him, but and everything is still up in the air for all of us. But I do know that the unconditional love and to love everyone involved is majorly important, especially if you didn't just meet your twin a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You were made to do this. This is part of your life. This is how things have turned out. Then there's emotions and things to deal with. It is what it is. But as far as everyone asking me how I can, my twin flame and my husband, and, isn't he pissed off? No, he knows me. I've always told, I'm not a liar. I try really hard not to be a liar and to tell the people in my life the absolute truth, whether they want to hear it or not. And I'm not always perfect, but I do the best that I can. So figuring out this twin flame journey and the love that we can all, because my husband would be the first one to go do something for his family. My husband offered to do stuff for his family. My husband gave me a whole complete credit card to buy all kinds of baby stuff. I mean, my husband is amazing. He loves the way that I love. And if I love something, he loves it because he loves me, and vice versa. And that's the way that it should be, in unconditional love for anyone. All of you in twin flame relationships that are all going through this and hurting and not knowing what to do, and you're either going to take it or you're not going to take it, or you're going to go on with your life. You're never going to forget your twin. It's always going to be there because it's the lesson, it's the mirror of you to help get you to where you need to be in your life. And if you think you're going to be able to go on with another relationship and not let them be honestly know about where you've been and who you are, and you expect it to work, it will not. The only way that it will work is if you are honest with yourself and you are honest with the people around you. And sometimes that takes a long time, but I can tell you it's always worth it. It's always worth it. And like I said, this video wasn't to hurt anybody, tell any, whatever anyone wants to take it. This was basically something I need y'all to understand. I haven't had it. When I say that I haven't had an easy life, you have no clue. And I'm trying to give you a little bit of piece of me so you can learn who I am and how to trust when I talk and understand that, yes, sometimes things are very overwhelming for me because I've been very overwhelmed. I can't tell you everything that's happened because it's too long. It's too long of a freaking video. But I'm continuing to be loving. I'm continuing to grow every day. And if it wasn't for God, for the angels, for spirit, I would have never made it this far. So thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, please email me. I love you all, and I hope you have a good day. And remember, don't feel sorry for me. I'm a survivor. I will survive, baby. Love y'all. Bye.